so let's get diving into today's topic, Capture 101 in the federal market. It's my favorite topic, so let me just make sure I got my stuff lined up. And I'm going to share my screen again today. For those of you who are new, I don't generally share my screen, so this is kind of a newer thing just for this week, pretty much. We're going to get talking today about Capture Management 101. It's an introduction to Capture Management. And I want to put in context, where does Capture fit into the federal lifecycle, federal sales lifecycle? So if you have heard me talk about this before, federal sales is anything related to trying to sell your product, including marketing. Marketing is not this one-off thing. It is part of sales, right? It's the awareness factor of sales. It's beginning to get on the radar of your customers. So business development is what I talked about in a previous training yesterday. And today I'm talking about Capture. This is the phase where if business development is identifying opportunities, Capture is about taking one opportunity and really driving it forward so that it's the best opportunity for you and the most likely to win. And we'll talk more about that today. And then the third step of the federal sales lifecycle is proposal management, right? So you identify opportunities, you shape opportunities, and you respond to opportunities. That's the sales lifecycle in a nutshell, right? There's no reason to overly complicate it. And today we're going to be talking in particular about Capture. I want to talk to you about a lot of stuff, but grouping it into two main areas. First, I want to talk about the sales pipeline's Capture lifecycle stages, the stages of the pipeline as you move forward. When you understand that, then you will understand that it doesn't just start at the RFP being dropped. You'll understand that there's this activity that's going on. I'm not going to talk about it today, but in previous training, I describe it as shifting left. This idea, if there's 5 Capture lifecycle stages and writing a proposal is the last stage before you submit the proposal there, right? Then you want to shift left. And the more activity you can do to the left of the proposal, the more likely you're going to win it. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how do you shape an opportunity? The whole point of Capture is to shape that opportunity to your advantage, to your company's advantage. And so I'll go through those today and talk about that. If that's what you're looking forward to doing, do me a favor, put into the chat just Capture rocks. Let me know you're awake there and we're ready to rock and roll, right? If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what you want. That's what you want in order to grow your company. And it's what I want for you. And it's why I come back over and over again to do these trainings. If you have questions as you go along, let me know. And one other thing before I get too far is I have multiple trainings on Capture that I've done before. So you can go find them. And one in particular that I'm not touching on today, and so it's the reason I'm mentioning it, talks about the percentage likelihood of winning. So it's the whole metrics. Actually, I'm going to cover that again on Thursday. So May 11th, tomorrow, I guess. Come back for that if you want to see the percentages, right? How to really understand your numbers and measure them. So the first stage, and by the way, these 5 stages I'm going to give you are my stages. They're pretty standard, right? But everybody might have something varying, but these are perfect for me. I like these, and I'm going to tell you why. So the first stage is an unqualified. And what I mean by this is there's actually a pre-stage. Say, for example, I go into the long-range acquisition forecast an agency has, or I go into GovWin, or I go to some of these places, right? I go to FPDS and I find a bunch of expiring opportunities I might want to pursue. Well, those are just pre-unqualified. I'm looking at them visually. I'm trying to spend 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes tops, looking at whatever I can see right there and go, man, it looks like it's good for us. And so I bring it forward, right? I've just looked at 100 opportunities. And of those 100, I found, let's say 5 or 10, I said, it looks good. Well, that phrase apparently that I say, looks good, that means it's unqualified. And then I'll put it in my pipeline. The reason I say that, I'm a little funny there, right, is I don't want you lifting and shifting junk into your pipeline. I want you to only put stuff in your pipeline that looks like it could fit. And I see this happen all the time with these tools, all these subscription-based tools. A lot of us just grab all that data and bring it into our pipeline, but that's not the way it's supposed to be happening. Those tools are great to be the repository of everything. Your pipeline is precious. People look at your pipeline in your company, and so you need to make sure even the unqualified opportunities, when somebody looks, they go, looks good, right? So the way you want to pay attention to unqualified. And I have this bullet, the second bullet, where it talks about, is this opportunity real? The life cycle stages are, you progress through them, and there's certain criteria to move from one to the next. So to move from an unqualified state where you found this newly identified opportunity that seems like it could be a fit for your company, the first thing I'm really paying attention to is this opportunity real? And if it is, then I move it to the qualified stage, right? And I'm still looking at this from a high level. I haven't talked with anybody. I haven't really, maybe even found a lot of documents yet, but I moved it forward. I said, you know what, this is a qualified opportunity because I actually reached out, and here's a criteria, right? In order for me to go to unqualified to qualified, I want to talk to somebody, the contracting specialist or contracting officer, the small business specialist, somebody who can just tell me, oh yeah, that's a real opportunity, right? That's not some vaporware or something that's out there. So now we've moved forward into the second stage of the life cycle. This is qualified. And the whole idea is, as you're moving an opportunity through the life cycle, your company is able to count on it more and more for revenue. Unqualified opportunities, let's say 5% of them can be counted. And don't take that number because I actually have my numbers done separately. But let's say it's 5%. That means 95% of unqualified might not go anywhere. And it's the same thing with qualified. It's just a higher percentage. Let's say this is 15% of opportunities that reach the qualified stage. 15% of them might end up winning, or being a proposal and winning. And so that's the percentage way of looking at it. So when we move forward, you really want to trust the fact that you moved it forward based on real data, not a hunch. Hey, let me just promote it to the next stage, right? So qualified, I'm in qualified, and what I want to do here is I want to verify it's a real opportunity by reaching out and talking to the program office, or see something beyond just the initial data I saw. Like, hey, it's in a long range forecast, it must be real, right? That's enough to go from unqualified to qualified. But when I get to qualified, I want to be talking to people, and I want to confirm. This is the other big thing at qualified, is I'm just trying to confirm that this is a slam dunk opportunity. And I describe slam dunk opportunities as ones that when you read it, you say to yourself, wow, this was written for our company, right? That's a slam dunk opportunity. So you need to know the criteria for a slam dunk opportunity for your pipeline, for your company. When you know that, it makes it so much easier for you and anybody else in your company to look at an opportunity, begin to dig down into the task areas and go, yeah, that's a slam dunk opportunity. It falls squarely in our core competencies. Bad pipelines are ones that allow opportunities in that get farther and farther and farther away from our core competency. When you've done this and you've confirmed that it's a slam dunk opportunity, by the way, one of the tools that I use to confirm it's a slam dunk opportunity, and this tool must be done in the qualified stage, is called a requirements gap analysis. And basically, I'm just listing out all the task areas, and then I'm reading all the paragraphs, and I'm pulling out, I don't care about shall statements. I'm not here to do a proposals job. I'm here to do sales. I'm looking at it going, can I win it? And so what I want to understand, what are the requirements? What are they truly trying to do? Right? So this is an exercise that's different than what proposal managers do. Proposal managers really think from a compliance exercise. This should be done from a salesperson or even a solution engineering's perspective, right? You shouldn't use your solution engineer to do it. They should teach salespeople how to do it. But you fill out a requirements gap analysis, and you really have a good understanding of the requirements that are in that opportunity, and how strong is your company at it. And by the way, how much past performance do we have for each task area? Right? It's a great way to document what you feel about it when you look at it. Don't ever let yourself just, go by without documenting certain basic things. So the tool in there in the qualified stage is a requirement gap analysis, and we move forward to pursue. Pursue is where I'm really diving into the task areas further. I'm trying to figure out what are our weak areas, what are our strong areas. I might begin to build a teaming worksheet. And I've done training on this before where I talk about, well, look, we're really strong here, but where we need teaming partners are in these task areas. And because I'm diving into each task area, I'm understanding better and better what the work is. But I'm also going in and starting to talk with program office personnel, right? Not just contracting people. Capture is about trying to get into that program office. This is why business development is so important, is because you build those relationships before you need them. So by the time you get to an opportunity, you just pick up the phone and call Sally and say, hey, Sally, I know we've been talking for a while, but I have this specific opportunity, or I have these specific type of questions. Actually, I wouldn't say I have an opportunity, but I'd ask her questions directly related to the opportunity. I'm diving into the task areas. Why are you doing it this way? What are you trying to get out of this? This is where I'm really uncovering, I say fully understanding the opportunity. It's about understanding the background of the requirement or opportunity. And I don't mean what the government writes as a background, but why are you getting to the stage? How did you get to the stage? What kind of market research did you do ahead of time? Were you doing requirements understanding program office for a long time? You just coming in. And so fully understanding that, understanding their challenges, agency challenges, program office challenges, and then requirement challenges, right? There's 3 levels of challenges. There's 3 levels of objectives. There's objectives that they write for the opportunity or the requirement. Then there's objectives for that program office, higher level set of objectives they're trying to accomplish in the next year or 2 or something. And then there's agency level. I want to understand those. And this is what I mean by fully understand the opportunity and pursue. And when I do, then I move forward. And as I'm moving into this next phase, the 4th phase, it's called bid. That's what we call it at the moment. You call it whatever you want. But the idea is you're going into this stage when you feel like you got a winning proposal score that's 80 or higher. This is different than a P-win. I think P-wins should never be used again. They don't make any sense. A quick side box. P-win means probability of win. The probability of win is dependent on the number of proposals that were submitted. Anything else anybody says about that is a guess. Your probability of winning is 1 out of 4 if there are 4 qualified proposals, right? So it's 25%. Those are random numbers and people just put percentages, but a winning proposal score, and you can go watch training I've done on this, it shows you how to use captured tasks to truly understand how much do we know this agency, this requirement, how well are we positioned by score. I mean, tasking yourselves. And so it's this automated way of giving you a score that doesn't lie to yourself, right? And not to insinuate that you lie to yourself, but in the past, I would just guess on P-wins the way the industry did. And am I giving myself an optimistic score, right? Things like that. In bid, you want to get teaming agreements in place. This is where you want to do a couple of things. You want to make sure you're sending emails back and forth that says, hey, Jane, can we just confirm that before we even go down the path of a TA, that this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this percentage split, or this type of work goes to you, this type of work goes to us, those kind of details. This is what I'm going to require from you as a prime. I want active participation in the proposal. Things like that. Can you confirm that in email? That way, when you send it to a TA, to legal for TA or whatever, you're not doing a lot of redlining activity. And most importantly, you're not having miscommunications. Miscommunications happen when people are afraid to just directly say to the other person, this is what I understand it to be. Could you correct me if I'm missing anything? And then let's discuss the discrepancy, right? So you want to get the teaming agreements in place, the TAs. And the last thing is, for me, when you go into bid, you want to start writing the proposal. I often hear about companies that wait till the RFP drops, and that doesn't make any sense to me. If you know you're going to write to it, don't sit there and use the excuse that the RFP might change or there might be details that change. Yeah, that could happen at $1 billion level opportunity, but the lower the opportunity is, 100 million, 50 million and below, right? $1 million and below, you're not going to have a lot of drastic change. And so you've already done your requirements gap analysis. You already know the work is in your swim lane, and you've already found teaming partners to shore up. So when you get into bid, in my opinion, you should start writing that proposal, because you plan on writing it when it gets to that last stage, which is proposal. And I don't have any bullets here, because the reality is the proposal phase is kind of automatic. The RFP drops, you look really quick and go, has anything completely changed? For example, it should have come out on Oasis, but now it's coming out on Seaport Next Gen. It's like, well, I can't do that, so we're dead, right? So, but if if you've been doing capture, all these decisions that are coming down, you've got a good idea of where it's going, and so you want to be able to move into that last stage, proposal. So these are the 5 stages, and there's a lot of activity, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you move it forward with some activity. But keep these in mind, because this is your pipeline. And when you pay attention to the life cycle of your pipeline, these stages will begin to help your whole company, leadership, finance, whoever. And this is more, makes more sense the bigger you get. But there's a lot of people who are putting, planning their activities around the sales pipeline. And so the sales pipeline must be trusted. So you need to have criteria of how an opportunity moves forward to each stage. That way, when it moves forward, people start saying, oh, 15% of that. When it gets to pursue, it's 30%, 50% of bid opportunities are going to be counted on as revenue. This is really important, and your pipeline stages help out. Okay, let's talk about shaping the opportunity in your favor. It was funny. I had this conversation with a contracting officer, spent 30 years in the government as contracting officer in that world. And I was saying how, sales would come in and shape it. And she said, well, no, that really doesn't happen. We kind of determine it. I'm like, yeah, I know you think that, but that's what it's like from the buyer perspective. But let me say it from the seller's perspective, right? From the seller's perspective, we're going in there and we're trying to ask questions. We're not forcing you to do anything, but we're trying to ask questions and introduce ideas to you that help shape the opportunity in our favor. And she's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's during market research. Yep, that's perfect. And so we're on that same stage. So let me talk about the 3 different areas that you can shape opportunities, right? And I group it into 3 areas: acquisition, requirements, and past performance. And so we'll come to this. What I mean by shaping opportunities is you're trying to shape the whatever the government is going to put in that RFP, shape it in a way that your company, this is Capture 101, right? That your company looks really good and is very strong, and your competitors look really bad and are weak, right? We're not trying to insult the competitors, but that's business, right? I'm trying to win, and in order to win in sales, somebody loses, right? In business, it's not that way. We can have win-win, but in a contract award, one's going to win and the rest of us will lose, and that's fine. But how do you shape an opportunity? So the acquisition side, how the government is going to procure this requirement, is one way. So contract vehicles, right? You can sit there and try to get in right away and say, hey, why don't you go with GSA? Because we're on GSA Mass, right? That's really important in there. Or why don't you go with Oasis? Whatever the contract vehicle is, you're trying to push it to your contract vehicle or your teaming partner's contract vehicle that they have so that you can get on their team. But one way or another, you're trying to push it to a contract vehicle you can participate on, right? That makes sense. And by the way, you have to do all of these things I'm saying. You have to get in there and talk about it early so you can talk about it in a sources sought response. But you also want to be on the phone talking to the contracting officer. That's who does the acquisition side of the house for shaping it, requirements here. So NAICS code, this is really important. People think, oh, the NAICS code's listed. It's just there. Go talk to them about why they should change it. Give them some data and evidence. Don't just say, hey, go from 54111 or 511 to 512 or something. But actually tell them, hey, here's why I think you should do it, because it's more aligned to the requirement that you have. Plus, other opportunities that have come out in your agency have used this NAICS code. It's good, right? Whatever you're trying to do, here's why you want to do that. If you can take the NAICS code, for example, say you're a much smaller small, if you push it to a NAICS code where the size standard is lower than, let's say, 33 million, it pushes it down to 20 million or 7 million or whatever, right? If you can push it lower, you're pushing some of your competition out. That's a way to shape an opportunity. Maybe you don't have a NAICS code on a particular mass schedule that you're on, and so you want to push it to where you're, the NAICS codes that you have that GSA mass for. Set aside, this just means pushing it towards small business first, and then woman-owned, veteran-owned, or SDVO, 8A or hub zone, right? And the more you push it down, the more you're eliminating competition and making it easier for yourself. An example is, if you think about hub zones, there's roughly 5,000 hub zones. There's 300,000 plus businesses within the federal market, 300,000 or so small businesses. And so if you can push it to hub zone, you've just gotten rid of almost 300,000 businesses. And now the competition is 5,000 hub zone firms. And about half of those are nowhere near doing the type of work that you're probably going after, right? Construction or IT, et cetera. So that's why you want to push to a set aside, and you need to get in there and have conversations. Yes, you need to respond to sources sought and RFIs, but you need to have conversations with them and talk with them. What do you need in order to set this aside? Can I go find a whole bunch of women-owned businesses to respond saying we will come in and respond? The last bullet I have here on how, and these are just examples of 4 examples of how you can shape acquisition. But the last one here is FAR clauses. Look in maybe previous awards and see the FAR clauses they had. If there's a draft RFP, you can look there, or you can just introduce FAR clauses that matter to you. And the one I put down as an example is the hub zone price preference. Let's say this opportunity is going full and open and you know it. Well, try to get in there and make sure the hub zone price preference is in there. Because if you're a hub zone, and I know a company that was sitting about 200 million and still qualified as a hub zone. And so if they get in and if they introduce the hub zone price preference, and basically that means their price is lowered by 10% than what it actually is. And so they get a 10% bonus on it. And so if they have that clause in there, they're able to use it. But if that clause is not in there, you can't use it. So you want to look into, and I don't want you to understand the FAR completely. I just want you to understand the FAR that matters to you, right? So pay attention to which FAR clauses truly can help you. Forget about all the legality stuff. That's a whole nother training. What I mean is which ones can help you be more competitive and win more opportunities. That's your job as a capture manager, capture person, is to shape the acquisition approach. The other thing is to shape the requirement approach, or the requirements in general, right? So there's the scope of the work, and this is task areas, for example. When you look at the task areas, begin to understand how they're breaking them down. Don't just leave them that way. When the RFI comes out, often it comes out with draft task areas. Think about those task areas. How would you reorganize them? What new task area might you put in? So one that I would put in my last company, for example, I would do SharePoint and SharePoint migration. And it would have all this technical stuff about SharePoint, technology, right? But I would have them put in a task area for communication and outreach. How are you going to address user adoption? Because what I found is most of my competitors could talk to SharePoint, let's say, the technology of it, but they couldn't really talk about the users, frankly, because they never even thought about the users. But our company really believed that success of any project was making sure that we had full and open communication the entire life cycle of a project, and we could speak to that. Well, if I could introduce that as a task area, now I'm moving it forward. So think about those task areas. How can you shape them so they are fit stronger for you? If you've done things well, you want to kind of introduce that idea and say, you know what, customer, you probably want to consider these things. And that's, by the way, how you shape opportunities. You might want to consider this. You might want to consider that. You're not bullying anybody. You're having a conversation. Another area in the requirements that you can do is deliverables. So there's a list of deliverables. Look at the past opportunity. If there was, if this is a recompete, you can look at that. Or maybe they've got some, but sometimes these deliverables are just a waste, right? So you can get in there and start shaping them in your favor. If you have something that's to your advantage. For example, I love to put in things like having a migration plan fully written within 2 weeks of the start of the contract, because we could write a migration plan 50 pages long within 2 days of the contract start, because frankly, we would have written something like that for the RFI just to try to win. And so it's a way to push our competitors out. They're like, oh my God, I got to do that. And so you want to push things in your favor. And this is why, by the way, you should always have a core competency. Remember, slam dunk opportunities, have a core competency. Okay, so the next one is certifications. CMMI, Microsoft Gold are examples that I put in here. You want to look at the certifications you have and introduce them as saying, hey, you probably want vendors to have CMMI level 3. If you don't have certifications, you want to shape it so they go down, and talk to the customer about why they're not necessary. And the last one is key personnel. Look at the key personnel. If you don't like the way they're lining up, get rid of them. Or if you think there should be more key personnel or a different kind of key person in there, talk about it. You're able to shape those requirements. And the last one here is past performance. So when you're shaping opportunities, you can shape the government's thinking on the criteria for past performance. Really, when they think about it, they want scope, right? So you might want to talk to them about how important it is to have past performance that's similar scope in size or similar projects, but you're going to have to walk through similarities. And so if their project is, let's say, SharePoint migrations, but you've done Amazon or other cloud-related migrations, but AWS type migrations, you could sit there and make sure they understand that the past performance doesn't have to be Microsoft. It just has to be cloud upgrading from on-prem to cloud, that kind of thing. But you want to introduce the idea of how similarity or similar projects can be crosswalked. Same thing with size and standards. Introduce to them, hey, you probably want, like if your company has bigger size standards, say you want to have these size projects, and downgrade it if you have smaller, but you want to talk to them about the size of the project that is considered a good past performance, because they're going to look at that and say, are you strongly meeting those criteria? Okay, so we talked about 5 different stages that I hope you remember, and this is how you move through the pipeline, how you move opportunities through the pipeline following those 5 stages. And I also talked about how you can shape it. I just gave you a taste of how you can shape opportunities in your company's favor. I have a lot of other training you can go track on that, but I wanted to give you one task as you walk away. Look at your pipeline, whether it's on a spreadsheet or a fancy tool, I don't care. Look at your pipeline and go, do we have slam dunk opportunities? Like 2 or 3, not 10 or 20. Do we have 2 or 3 slam dunk opportunities for June that we're working on, or July, right? Just look at those and go, do we have those? If we don't, why not? And what can we do about it? And if you do, focus down on those stages that I talked about. If you get value from the training, become a sustaining member today. Help us support small businesses across the country. And if you're already making money in the federal market or even the commercial and trying to go federal, but you're already making money and you want to go to the next level, consider my BD Accelerator Workshop. It's a 90-day workshop to really accelerate you to the next level. And then just remember this, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Same as capture, right? I'll see you in the next training.